Hello and welcome to Model Train Fun. Today we're going to talk about the latest software update to the Central Station 3. This is version 2.3.1. This one appeared here in the end May 2021. I will be in the video briefly showing how to update your Central Station 3, but if you want the full story, please check out my other video, Central Station 3 episode 2. Hopefully there'll be a link to it up here in the top hand corner. What's new in the update? Well, to me there's three big things. There's basically a new simplified user interface. There's the ability to configure locomotives and accessories from the web interface. And then generally there is optimized and more reliable interface to electronics, MFX, and so on. It also comes with software updates for the Link 88 to software version 1.1 and to the Mobile Station 2 to software version 3.121, so 3.121. Where do I find information about the update? Well, you can go to the Märklin website. Remember to turn it into English. Then you can go under the service, and here under the downloads you will actually find the Central Station 3 updates. So you click on this one. You can scroll down, and down here you can see update information for Central Station 3. When you click on this one here, it says version 2.3.1. and up comes update information. Unfortunately, right now it shows version 2.2. I have already alerted Märklin that it's a mistake, so hopefully by the time this video comes out, they have updated. So I have the correct one here. If you look at what they talk about here in the update, they talk about introduction of a new quick start user interface for newcomers. That's what I termed as the simplified user interface before. That's actually also what it's called inside the software. Optimization of various things. There's an update option for the Mobile Station 2, and there's an update for the Link Link S88. And then it says that can update software on current locomotive decoders to version 3.2.1. I'm actually not sure what the last one does. But if you notice, there was already one thing I mentioned before, which is the configuration of locomotives and accessories on the web interface. That's actually not listed here. Let's go down through and see what it is. So here is some pictures of the new simplified interface. Here with the two locomotives, here with easy access to accessories. And you can scroll further down. It talks a little about how the help has changed a little. I would say I didn't see a lot of big changes here. So I suppose this change is really for in the simplified user interface, talking about how it's easy to get to it. It talks about various small things that has been updated as well. However, it doesn't really talk about the updates to the web interface. When we are here in the details, it mentions one interesting fact as well. So if you have the Mobile Station 2 connected to the Central Station 3, now you can also call up and control locomotives that are in traction as well, or in a consist. You can call that up from the Central Station when it's connected to the Central Station 3, then you can call it up on the Mobile Station 2. It also talks about some changes to the Mobile Station. We will talk about those in another video. All right, let's go in and look at how to do the update. So let me show you briefly how you do the update. Remember, for the long version of how to do the update, please check my other video for the Central Station 3 episode 2. In essence, you need to have your Central Station 3 connected to the internet. When it's connected to the internet, it will automatically show there's an update. You see it here in the top left hand corner where there's a red dot and it says 1. So that means there now is an update available. we can click on the system here. And the system appears. That was a little slow though, I'll have to say. When you come in here to the system, you have the settings and the assistance. Do remember you might previously have been on a different page. So in here, for example, in the system settings, so if I go out again and then I go back and click on the system here, you'll actually see it pops up somewhere inside the system settings. So you can either scroll up and down here, or you can use the back button, because when you use the back button, you come back to the intro page to the system. And here we have the settings. We go down and click the system settings here. And when we have the system settings, you can see both here on the left-hand side, there's a red dot saying there's an update, but also here in the section for the Central Station 3, it says there's an update to the Central Station 3, and you can actually see over here on the right-hand side, there's an update button. So let's click on the update button. It asks you if you're sure. Yes, I'm sure. So I want to start the update. What it does then is it restarts the user interface. It actually starts the updating software. So here you see the updating software, and it looks like it prefers to talk about this in German. I've had various success with this. Sometimes it does it in German, sometimes it does it, some of it in English, but I'll say for the most part it's all in German. So what you see here is I actually have my Central Station updated to the latest software, which is 2.3.1, and I did that a week ago. But now you see here a week later when I'm doing the video, there's actually an additional update here, and that was the one that was actually promised inside the update, which is a decoder update to firmware version 3.2.1. So I guess that was forgotten in the first round, or maybe just delayed. So what you have here is to the right hand side various status is showing during the update, and to the left the updates that are being installed. In order to start it, we basically just hit the little triangle up here, and you can see here to the right it starts showing what's going on. At the bottom you see a progress bar, and as you see, as it works, it goes to the end here, and this was a relatively short update that it's already updated and installed. So update is complete, so now I can hit OK. We hit the OK button. It will restart. And now it comes up. Now when you actually do the update to 2.3.1 itself, remember this was just a small additional update to the software. If you do that by itself, it will actually come up, and then the first thing that will be there is actually the language selection. Okay. Let's first look at the simplified user interface. So there's two ways you can get into this. Either during the first time boot of the Central Station 3. So I imagine if you have a brand new Central Station 3 with the updated software, it will come up and ask you about this. Also, when you reset the Central Station 3, it will ask you for this, and actually it asks you for it right after the install of the newest software. So what does it say? Well, it shows us two choices here. The top choice is actually the quick contact, and the bottom is the standard contact, and it tells you a little about what the differences are. So in essence, the standard contact down here is a user interface of the Central Station 3 you are used to, and the top one, the quick contact here, is the simplified user interface. You can choose either one by choosing the correct arrow over here. So the top arrow here to the right goes for the quick contact, and the bottom one goes to the standard contact. Let's choose the simplified user interface, so the quick contact. We click on this arrow, And then actually already here pops up additional help you didn't see before. So actually it makes it easy to actually discover the first MFX locomotives if you have any. So I actually have 2 locomotives on the track. So if you see here step 1, please place a locomotive on the track and make sure it's correctly connected to the track. So I click the little checkbox out here to the right. When I click that one there, it says, okay, let's go to step 2. Let's start the discovery process so it can attempt to find the locomotive. Do remember I have 2 locomotives. I click the little checkbox out here, okay. And as you can see, unfortunately it says it in German. It's actually starting to look for the MFX locomotives and requesting all MFX locomotives out there to actually register themselves with the Central Station 3. And you can see it actually found one here, my class 232 it found on the track, and it's actually reading the functions for that one. So you got to be patient here, and you actually shouldn't interrupt the process. So it's still reading. Now it's found another MFX decoder, so it actually completed the class 232. Okay, here you see that's a class 648, so that's my Linz regional train it's reading now. You have to be patient. All right, it's looking if there's additional locomotives. Okay. All right, and now it tells us, yippee, we found 2 locomotives, 2 MFX locomotives, and now I can actually go to step 3 and 4. Step 3 is, well, if it didn't succeed and you didn't see anything happening up here, I will have to say though, if you're non-German speaking, it can be hard to see what happened up here, other than you can actually recognize it says 2 MFX logs. So that's 2 locomotives. So you can actually here at step 3 restart the process again. I don't want to do that because it already found my 2 locomotives, but you can click here in the checkbox. So I'm just going to go to step 4 to end the discovery process. All right. So now we are actually in the simplified user interface. And as you can see here, it looks very different from what you normally would see on the Central Station 3. So normally you would see the track board, and that's kind of the center, and then you can pull in things from left and right in order to find the locomotives. Here, it's actually geared towards being able to easily control 2 locomotives and 32 accessories and the turnout table. Right, so what popped up here? Well, to the left, I have a locomotive control here, and you can actually see this is my class 648. I got here, it's ready to run, and you basically use this locomotive control as you're used to, where you can actually start the train by just going in and touching it, and then the train runs. Okay, there's the functions over here as we know it. Turn on light, for example, turn on light, internal light, turn on the engine sound. And now you can hear it actually started behind me. So I'm going to turn it off again. That's kind of the standard control. Also notice here that here on the top there's actually a help that's continuously there telling you about what to do, right? So it says you can see the 16 functions, and you can use the slider to switch between them here. Unfortunately the text is a little long. It also tells you how to get to the accessories or solenoids. That's basically by hitting the keyboard and so on. So continuously it changes up here to give you help, right? If we look at the locomotive control here to the right, this is a direct access drive. So what I had to the left here is my MFX locomotive, it's recognized. Over here, if I know the address of a locomotive, I can just directly punch it in. So let's say the address of the locomotive is 56. I can basically just go and hit 56, and then I can hit the check mark here, and then we'll call up address 56. But one thing you have to notice is you need to choose the protocol first. So if you are a Märklin fan like me and using the Central Station for Märklin trains, and it's a Märklin locomotive, then remember to choose the MM for the Märklin addressing. But notice it's equally easy to actually choose DCC addressing instead. I'm not quite sure how the MFX works, because in truth you cannot set the address here, so I'm not quite sure how they envision that to be used. But here I got a Märklin locomotive. I can basically just click, and now you see my locomotive is available to drive. It says down here it's a Märklin address 56, okay. I can actually go in here and set the speed. Now nothing will happen because I actually don't have a locomotive on address 56. I can also slide it down so it stops, and then you can use all the function buttons here to the right as well. So this is a handy way to actually directly address your locomotives. This is very handy if you don't have MFX locomotives and you already know the addresses of your locomotives. How do I change locomotives? Well, you do that. You see down here below on both the right hand and left hand side, there's a little picture. I can click here on the question marks over here, and up pops the selection where I can select which locomotive to have. So if I don't want the address 56, I can actually click here on my class 232, and now I have that one over here. So this makes it easy to actually go in and select other locomotives. In the simplified user interface here, you can also add a locomotive, and this is the standard dialog, or actually it's a little more advanced to what we saw before, where you had to add the address. But it's more simplified than the standard interface. Again, there will always be a help up here where it says select the decoder type. I select, let me try DCC this time. Now it tells me to enter the locomotive address. It tells me the range. Okay, let me say it's 355. I accept that. It tells you can give it a name and so on. So now I actually already have a locomotive. I can also click here on the look icon, and then I can go ahead and find a suitable icon for this locomotive. So let me just choose this one here. Yeah, that looks nice. I can hit OK, and now I have a locomotive icon as well. It also tells you up here, oh, don't forget to set up the functions. So I can click on the functions here to the left. Here you see the light is already pre-populated. Then you can select what is F1. You can go here and select. Remember, there's multiple tabs in here. So let's say that's the cab light. So now you see it appears over here, and so on, right? I will do a video talking about how to set up in the Central Station as well a locomotive. Okay. And as you see, now I have the locomotive here. If you want to edit your locomotive here in the simplified user interface, you basically just go on the wrench here, you click on the wrench, and then you get into a simplified setup compared to the standard, where you can change your locomotive as well, locomotive name, what symbol does it need to be on the mobile station 2. You can go into a little more advanced here, but you cannot access all the parameters in here. All right, I'm going to go out of this. So this is controlling locomotives, and as you can see, it's easy to control two locomotives. Why two locomotives? Well, do remember the physical layout of the Central Station 3. There's two red buttons as well, so this easily on the screen corresponds to the two red buttons, and it makes it easy to use. By the way, changing direction of the locomotive is in here in the center, where you can choose the direction of the locomotive. Do, however, notice there's also a bar down here where you actually can see the speed of the locomotive as well. So here I can also change the speed. I heard it driving behind me. Let me just set it to 0. Yeah, it's a little hard with the mouse. It's actually easier with a finger. So down here you can also control the speed of the locomotive and the direction of the locomotive. Now, if you want to get into the accessories, you have to press the keyboard up here. And now you can see, I can still see my locomotives down here. I can still control it. So see, I can still control my locomotive and run it around while I look at the accessories. So on the accessory page here, you can see there's a scroll bar. If you scroll all the way to the end, you will see here is the turnout table if you have that one. So here it's easy to control the new Märklin turnout table. If we go just to the page just before it, you can see the maximum number of accessories you can have here is 32. So again, remember this is a simplified user interface dedicated for people that have a smaller layout. So that means it's easy to get to the 32 accessories, and you can easily go in here and change them. Sorry, it's down here. So you change them by clicking on the keyboard here. So here now I have the turnout straight, and now I have the curved turnout. Over here there's a signal. I can choose between the different signal aspects. You see this is a little more complex signal, so I can choose here for please proceed slowly. I can choose here for the green or proceed. I can choose here for the red with the switching. So this is a 4-aspect signal, and I can go back to red, right? So you can see it's actually relatively easy to control your accessories here. These are default accessories. You can of course hit the plus here, and then you come in and you can configure your accessories. So here is my accessory 9. I can go down here to the bottom. I can click on turnouts because it is perhaps actually a turnout. Maybe it's a double slip switch. So now it becomes a double slip switch. So easier to navigate around. It's easy to control 2 locomotives. It's easy to get to the 32 accessories. And don't forget, if you got MFX accessories, you can actually click the bottom up here, the button up here to search for them. And you can see it will go in and discover MFX items. And in that way, you can actually rediscover all your MFX items you have on the track. And actually, I do have some turnouts that are the old styles and non-MFX, and I have some signals and turnouts that are MFX. So I would be able to now just say, well, give it a new address, or I could keep its address if it's already okay on the layout, and then I can hit OK. I will not do that because that will actually take quite a while. And after a while, it will have populated here your turnout page with what it's found out there. All right, the final thing in the simplified user interface is the setup. There's actually also a simplified setup. So if we click on the setup here, you see over here to the left, there's a lot less choices actually in the setup panel. On the help page, you still got all the, well, actually it looks like you got a reduced help here as well. So there's actually a new help here that's equivalent to what the simplified user interface have. You see it's a lot shorter than the other one. Up here, you can actually also select between items here. If I remember right, see, you can actually use your finger and then you can slide it across here and then find the help you want as well. Okay. If we go over to the system settings, you see it's a simplified user interface. I basically only have a little about the Central Station 3. I can choose the language. Remember, there's usually a lot more in here. And then I can look at whether or not I have been connected to the Ethernet. Here there's also only one choice. And then I can look at additional devices, and I can look at the device information about the Central Station 3 as well. So a much more simplified user interface. All right, let's try and shift back to the standard interface. You see here in the settings, I can actually choose between simplified and standard. So when I Select that. It asks me, are you sure you want to select back to standard mode? I select yes. And then what you will see the central station do is it actually restarts. See, now it comes up in the normal standard interface. All the changes I did in the simplified user interface are of course available here. That also means that whatever changes you do here in the standard interface will also be available in the simplified user interface. So let's say you have a kit, for example, you can set everything up here in the standard interface, and then you can easily switch over to the simplified user interface so they can play with it there. Okay, how do we do that? Well, you go to the system icon up here in the top left, and then you have the same system with settings and assistance, but you see here there's a lot more choices here over on the help page. You see there's a lot more choices on the settings. We click the system icon here, we scroll down, and then we find the settings for the Central Station 3. And here again you see the user interface. Here I can actually select the simplified. Again it asks me, are you sure you want to change to the simplified interface? And I see there's a mistake here. It's a mix between English and German. I'll have to say that you find that a few places around in this new update where they've forgotten to translate something. Okay, I want to go to the simplified interface, so I hit OK. It restarts again, and then it comes up as the simplified interface here. So that makes it easy to change between the standard and the simplified interface. Woohoo! Let's look at what else has changed in the user interface. I'm first going to look at items related to locomotives. So if you have your locomotive list down here at the bottom, don't forget you can pull it up so you can see additional items. So what there is of new items here is actually inside the filter. You would see there is additional filtering options in here. In motion, standing, I believe MISC is miscellaneous is also new. So those you can also use for your filtering in here. If you go into the edit of locomotives, so I will select here my class 232. I will edit this one. As you can see, the standard two first tabs here look like they usually do, but the configuration tab will actually be a little different. There's a little more to the icon up here, for example, so it shows you whether or not you can go in and edit. In this case, it's actually unlocked, so I can go in and edit. When I click on this one, you can see I'm sorry, you can see it will actually read the information from the locomotive, and you see the icon up here also changes. So now it's actually reading the information from the locomotive. As you notice here, there's a few more blocks, so all the things are divided into more blocks in here, so it's easier to find your way around. So for example, if I want to find the sound, I just open the sound block here, and I can easily change the volume. And do remember, when it's MFX locomotives, you basically just go in and you can change the number, and it actually immediately takes effect. So I could change this to let me just 200 instead. Oh, I did this wrong, so I will change this to 200, and then you will actually see, if you did notice, the icon up here briefly changed because it immediately actually wrote the value to the locomotive. I can also just go one up, and you see it clicked and changed up here. Excellent. A new item is the burger menu here, or the 3 lines. So in the 3 lines here, there's additional functions. You can read the configuration again from the decoder. And then you could go into the mapping of the function values as well. I would say here for MFX locomotives, there's not as much interesting here under the burger menu. However, let's try and take a DCC locomotive. So I go in here and I want to edit a DCC locomotive. You see there's the same icon over here on the configuration. Right now it's locked. So I click on this one here. You see now it's actually trying to read from the DCC locomotive Unfortunately, it will not succeed because I do not have a DCC locomotive on the layout, and you actually see, it couldn't read it. However, what I wanted to show you in here, under the burger menu, there's a lot of interesting things you can do here. So you can actually have templates, you can add additional CVs, you can delete CVs, you can read out from the decoder, and actually when you have changed values, you can click on this and write it back to the decoder, and it actually both supports direct update on the layout for those DCC decoders that supports that, and actually programming on the programming track as well. So you can actually get a lot more choices in here. I'm sure that's handy for all my DCC friends that uses the Central Station 3, or if you have a locomotive from a different manufacturer where you actually have chosen to use the DCC protocol instead. Most excellent. Now let's look at actually my favorite update in this update, and a new addition is actually on the web interface. If you played with the web interface before, you'll know that it's really good for when you are controlling your trains from, let's say, a cell phone, a tablet, your PC, your Mac, or whatever. Basically, you just need a browser, and then you can control your layout and your locomotives. You can control your turnouts and so on. So as you see here, it looks exactly, or let's say similar to what you see on the central station itself. You also got the locomotives to the left and right that you can populate with your locomotive list. Oh, I didn't quite get it. So here you see I can populate my locomotive as well, and I can control my locomotives from here. Very, very handy. So you can do it from your cell and mobile phone. However, what they added here is now the ability to edit locomotives and accessories as well. So that means that now you can almost do everything, I would say, that you would like to from the web interface. I would say in the past I've used the web interface a lot from my cell phone and mobile phone to control the layout. It's easy because then you get a wireless access to it. You can use your tablet as well, and you can easily run around the track, so you're not tied to wires anymore. But it's also been handy to actually edit the trackboard, because it is actually easier, I believe, in the web interface that it is using your finger on the screen. All right, so we can click down here in the locomotive list. I can click edit now. I can click edit locos. I can now go in, and as you see here, this is exactly the same configuration as you see on the central station itself. Even when I go over here and click the configuration, you see it will automatically read in the blocks, just as I showed before. You even have the burger menu and so on. So now you got a lot more options inside the web interface. You can basically completely configure, add your locomotives. You can make traction or consists as well, and so on. So to me, this is actually the biggest update here. If you remember before here in the update description, so let's just go to the top, that wasn't even mentioned in here as one of the new updates. So I was very, very excited to see this update to the web app. And now you see here it actually completed the read-in, and now you can go ahead and configure exactly as you would on the central station. So I'm really, really excited about that, I will have to say. In the same fashion, you can pull down on the top. You can go into the edit, and now there's actually an edit article list, also add article. So now you can go in here and you can fully configure your articles as well. So let me just click here on my signal here. I will have to say it doesn't always change to English. I've had some interesting cases where it doesn't change to English. So sometimes you just have to reload the page. So let me just try that and see if it actually changes to English. So we go into edit here again, edit article list. Actually, it didn't change. But you can click here. Well, that's actually funny. Notice down here at the bottom, it's actually in German. so I can choose things in German. If I go into the configuration itself, now it's actually in English. But nevertheless, now I get access to actually being able to control and edit everything on the accessory side as well from the web interface. So really, really nice. All right, since we are in the web interface, let me show you a couple of hints as well. So what I did find, first of all, if you go to Home, is that when you go into the settings, don't forget you can choose this device, and in here you can actually select the language. I would have to say, in order to make it perfectly do English, usually I select the last one here, and there you can select the language. So now it's permanently in the web interface English, for example. Sometimes I had a little more luck saying use the browser language setting. But I never did have much luck using the CS3 language setting. So I still think they have a few issues that needs to be cleaned up in the web interface. However, what's really interesting here is that if you go into the system here, I'm just clicking the system. Don't forget here is a changelog. So I'm going to click on the changelog here, and here you actually have a list of every single change to the Central Station 3 with the update 2.3.1. So if you look at the Märklin tutorial on the Märklin website or on the YouTube channel, it's in German, but it will talk about a certain set of features. If you look at the update here, the PDF downloaded before, it will talk about a certain set of features. Both of them didn't mention the web interface. However, if you go to the web interface and you see here's version 2.3.1, I open this up. Here we have the entire list of updates, and there's actually a lot of things that isn't mentioned either place. So there's small and big updates that are not mentioned. Unfortunately, when you go look at it, it's always in German. However, I'm using the Microsoft Edge browser, and there is actually a little button out here where it can actually automatically translate. I believe other browsers have it as well. So I can go in here, I can say I want to translate it to English. It will actually translate it for me. It's not the best, but it's still something that can be read and understood. So you see here it talks about other bug fixes, correction of motor parameters. So that's what I talked about, that there's a lot of optimization to the electronics, to the interface with the electronics, and so on. You see delete MFX buffer file at login and so on. So there's lots of interesting improvements here, and if you go down through the list, you see many improvements. So it's much more than I just showed you. So in general, I would say this has made the Central Station more reliable, or it's supposed to. Let's see if that's the case. But of course that will take some time to see that. You see here it also noticed, for example, that we can actually go in and adjust the turnout lantern as well on the turnouts and so on. So there's a lot of interesting things that's in there. Maybe one thing that's I would say very important is before, when you filled up the memory of the Central Station 3. So if you add a lot of turnout, you expand your layout, you upload a lot of custom pictures for your or icons for your locomotives and so on, you can risk to fill up the memory. In that case, previously the Central Station 3 would just lock up, and the only choice you really had was to send it back to Märklin for service. So now there is actually support for being able to get out of that situation, where you actually can export things to either a USB or to a SD card as well, such that you can get back into a state where you actually can operate it again. And down here you also see the updates to the web interface that I've just showed you now. You also see here there's a new version of the software to the Link S88, so it's a version 1.1. You see there's a new update to the Mobile Station 2 as well included, so when you connect the Mobile Station 2 you can also update that. So As you can see, lots and lots of changes. So it is really a major annual update of the Central Station 3. I hope you will enjoy all the great new updates to the Central Station 3 in this version 2.3.1. Don't forget to check out my video, the CS3 episode 2, which has a longer explanation of how to do the update. If you like this video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell so that you will be notified of upcoming videos. Enjoy!